So these are 15 creepiest true stories ever told. And if you don't believe me, you could go on YouTube, go to 15 creepiest true stories ever told. Okay.
That rock back and forth on your front porch. We count 15 frightening true stories from the folks over at Reddit. A link to the full set of stories is in the description box below. Number 15. A story from Bond Max Bond Rock about a girl asked to babysit some kids. She sent them to bed around 9 p.m. and went off to do her own thing, watching TV and getting some homework done. From inside the basement, she heard rustling and pans falling over. Instead of going down to check, she phones the police and informs them there might be someone down there. Instead of a single patrolman turning up at the house, an entire SWAT team breaks in and searches the basement, only to find a man who happened to be wanted for multiple cases of rape in the area, citing they heard someone listening in on her phone call. Suffice to say, she was glad not to have personally inspected the basement all alone. Number 14. A story from Descendant about his father going through a divorce, and in the meantime he stays with his own mother, who claims the house is haunted by the shadow of a girl walking room to room. Since he and his wife share custody of his daughter, on some nights she stays with her mother and others her father. One particular week in the middle of the night, the father is on the computer. Out of the corner of his eye, he catches his daughter sneaking into the kitchen, where she stops dead and stares at him for a few minutes. But he doesn't look at her, since he figured she would just go back to bed, which she did. And when he checked on her a while later, he realized with a sick feeling in his gut that her bed was empty. She had been staying at her mother's that week. Number 13. A story from Lumos the Knox. This one father has a son aged about 4 or 5 called Hunter. When he gets bad dreams, he'll climb into his parents' bed. One particular night, the father hears his son calling from the next room, only he doesn't say Dad, he calls him by his full name. When the father goes to check on Hunter, asking what's up, he finds Hunter asleep, and when roused, Hunter merely mentions, Dad, when they call you, you're not supposed to answer. The next morning, Hunter doesn't remember anything that happened. Number 12. So Reddit user Big Soul 81 claims that when he was a kid, he'd be flicking through his old television antenna trying to get a signal. One day at around 2 a.m., he found one with a strange rhythmic crackling sound. It went for a while before cutting itself dead. Instead, a voice crops up to whisper, "It doesn't work. We're already dead. We are already dead." It took a few seconds for the words to hit him, but when it did, it freaked him out. And though he claims it might have been someone messing around with a transmitter somewhere else, it still scared the living shit out of him. Number 11. Spectre, Alabama. A person vacationing in Ithaca with a boyfriend. They stopped near an old suspension bridge to take photos when a woman appeared. She offered to take a photo, but they politely declined. The woman smiled and kept walking straight off the bridge and onto the pavement far below. There wasn't even a moment of hesitation, almost as if they had no idea the path ended there before plummeting to their doom. It's also possible she felt so embarrassed by getting rejected with the photo taking that she decided to kill herself. Number 10. A story from Crank Loza, a night shift worker who had a shattering of glass at his business. A rock someone might have thrown near midnight with no other nearby businesses open that time of night. He finished work and left in his car, nervous that he hadn't caught the vandal yet. He realized he hadn't locked the car, so he did a quick backseat hand sweep to make sure nobody was there. After he arrived home, he pulled out his bike to head to his friend's place when he heard someone cycling behind him. He stopped and saw a crazy smiling man ride past on his mum's bike. He heads back home to find the bike gone and his backside car door wide open. Number 9. A story from SMPX, a net cafe in Taiwan where the elevator conveniently forgets to include a 4th floor for superstitious reasons. One man entered the elevator to visit the 6th floor net cafe, only for it to stop on a mysterious numberless door. Pitch black when the doors opened, random pieces of furniture strewn here and there, and in the distance a figure starts moving towards him dressed in a white gown. The light goes off in the elevator, shoots his pants, the doors close, and it resumes the journey to floor number 6. He consulted the cashier, who claimed the 4th floor used to be a hairdressing salon before a series of accidents and unexplainable events. The elevators were programmed never to visit the 4th floor, but on occasion it would, and others confirmed they'd seen the same robed figure approaching them on this mysterious floor. Number 8. A story from Walden Swirl, a 15-year-old kid sleeping in his loft bed at a mobile home in South California. The screen from his windowsill falls off and he thinks nothing of it, but then a tattooed hand reaches through to feel around the bedroom floor. This kid jumps out of bed and pulls a knife out, screaming to get the hell out of his room. His dad shows up and the tattooed man vanishes into the night. It was later revealed that the intruder had been living under their mobile home for quite some time. His own sleeping bag, water, extra clothes, and a hatchet, evidently plotting his intrusion for a while, the family unaware how close they came to getting hacked up in the night. Number 7, story from Pseudo Nom, a rundown house in a strange neighborhood. This kid finds a child's drawing underneath the stairs in the laundry room. Family of 5 with caption, "Our new home." People who stayed at their house reported a kid's voice behind them shouting "rah" to try and scare them, but when they turned around, nobody was there. One time, his whole family were getting ready to leave the house, but when his brother asked if he could take a Pepsi from the fridge, a child's voice clearly screamed "no" directly from the basement. No one in his family investigated, they just bolted from the house. Number 6, story from Kamajo 8991. A woman sleeping inside her house with a baby son ran about 2 a.m. when she, with her back to the door, heard someone enter her bedroom. The intruder shouted, "Are you in here?" All she could do was see the intruder's reflection in the window glass, paralyzed with fear. Then he shouted, "Fine, whatever," and slammed the door shut. She phoned the police and after they turned up, they asked her the frightening question, "Who's been living in your basement?" They found sleeping equipment and other stuff, but they couldn't tell when or for how long the intruder had lived there with her. Number 5, a story from Pajama Thief. A shadow that seems to follow this one guy. It first appears as hot static in the room, followed by a smell of cat piss, and finally, a black shape in the corner of his bedroom staring up at him. He falls asleep the next night and hears a metal squeak noise, only to wake up and find a chair next to his bed, as if someone had been watching him all night. One night when he went out for a smoke, he heard footsteps and a black shadow approach him, to which he pulled out